So the black mat that you see is a representation of a rock, maybe a boulder of some sort, and you could think of it that way. Inside might be an animal, a very primitive animal, almost as if hiding or just giving birth. And the animal has pulsations, because life has pulsations. As it's pulsatory and things therefore are moving, you're seeing the early stages of a kind of pulsatory movement and a breaking out gradually with that pulsatory movement, a breaking out from underneath this containment of this rock. Or you could even see it as a pile of vegetation. And gradually, slowly, out comes this creature, which could represent many, many creatures. And the didgeridoo music is kind of a perfect background tone for the kinds of movements in the evolution of motion. And this is almost like a birth. Like a birth. Like getting out of a womb of some sort, in a way. Now all the movements become rapidly more differentiated in early animal life. And eventually tubular shapes start to take place. We're full of tubes. Our blood vessels are all tubes. Our limbs are tubes. Our bodies, tubular. Our intestines are tubular, which is possibly the most like that ancient animal performing this kind of undulatory movement, which is what goes on inside of your body from your mouth to your anus all the time. And as the movements become a little more rapid, they become also more differentiated. And this tubular shape that took place on the planet a long time ago, took a long time for it to occur, a long time ago. But now, you get to a tubular shape with undulatory movements, and then those movements, as you're seeing them now, begin to carry on from the feet, through the pelvis, up the spine, and all the way out the hands, which is kind of like an antenna. And then this movement has a direction. It's going someplace. The tube has a direction. This is a long time ago, hundreds of millions of years ago. And now another stage goes right now. Instead of the movements of your intestines, like the undulatory movements, here you include and have lateral movements. In the lateral movements, in the position of the arms is representing some sort of early forepaw, something to carry the animal forwards rather than undulatory movements. And you can see the differentiation of the arms from the trunk and the inclusion of undulatory movements. But see in that differentiation that also finger tubes come out from the hands and arms. And now movements become more complex. The shoulders begin to move. The arms, the elbows, the shoulder joints, the movement of the spine, and now there's a movement forwards again. And you'll see more complex lateral movements. And as the animal learns over time to be able to go faster and more precisely in the direction it's seeing or smelling, its perceptual sense. In other words, there's a perceptual mechanism to direct this animal to go forwards. Forwards is a direction. It leads somewhere, and that has to be seen. It has to be smelled, tasted, something. And as the animal becomes more differentiated, the shoulder girdle and arms are differentiated, all of the body gains the ability to move to the sensations and perceptions of where to move next. And as you go from side to side, eventually you begin to raise the trunk from the floor, from the ground. And the idea of using the hands and the legs and the arms and the legs to learn to get up, to have some ability to rise off of the ground for the first time, it means that there has to be muscular and skeletal support, unlike other animals that have their weight fully on the ground. So this is yet something more difficult for the brain to figure out how to organize and move. In other words, the brain grows and performs more complex calculations as perceptions that can be put into actions and motion occur. You can't separate the movement of the animal, of any animal, from their brain. Now that the orientation of the environment has to be checked out because things are now so advanced, you need to have a bigger brain so that you can perceive an environment that you have much more access to. And now you're above the ground completely and you're moving over the ground rather than sliding your full weight on it. A completely different use of our muscles. And if the hindquarters of the animal gets in place, then of course you have even more precise movement forwards. The feet become similar to the hands in a way. And finally you have what you could call a full paw or claw, with a differentiated structure that can reach and hold things. That's the important point, that what's perceived could be held and touched. And now we come to realizations about these movements, and the realizations of what is that? Well, maybe a perception that there's a feeling in the face of your own face, from touching yourself, to think, well, what is that I'm looking at? It might be like something when I touch myself, but how could it be? So what you have, possibly, is fear. Fear and wonderment, and playfulness, and thoughtfulness, and confusion. Emotions. Complex emotions occur with complex movements. It's just an E before the word motion. Complex emotions. The idea of holding something in one's hands or paws occurs among only the tiniest number of species of animals on the planet. And now the animal becomes more at ease with opening up the front of its body, which is always still aimed to the ground, but it's going to try to open and show the viscera, expose, if you will, the viscera. Of course, you can't see the viscera, but to open up the body, as you see there, is a highly risky thing. What animal would really do that unless it felt very comfortable with its tribe? The exposure of the viscera. That's a very dangerous thing to do, to open the viscera. No animal does it, actually, not for long. And yet it becomes necessary for the next phase of possible movements, which you see. So I named the skull Yorick, alas, poor Yorick. And the wonder that overcomes the fear, complex emotions overlapping each other. What to do, what to even feel, how to go where. like a baby. Like a baby, playfulness, exploring movements, and developing a greater neuromuscular system is important to learning and adapting to new environments. Still feeling the exposure of intestines, the guts, that old primitive thing that used to slide on the ground, and the daringness to just be there, suspending arms on top of the legs, trusting the ground, and playing. Now increasing security and ability so new kinds of movements can occur in an upright posture. Learning to be upright and move on just two limbs and then backwards. The security of the upright posture can even turn into something that becomes dance-like. The ability to trust your tribe enough to expose your viscera, the front of your body. And to be fully erect and still scan the environment. Have a direction to go. The tubular shapes of the arms, the legs, the trunk, etc. Now they're vertical, yet the animal's moving at a right angle to the structure now. The perceptual apparatus is forwards, and the movement is forwards. The balance of a two-legged creature being explored through turning. And like with children of all sorts, they go through these stages of playfulness as they explore how to perceive and move. And now, a realization. Oh no, a new thing, time, the realization of time. Here comes modern life. Uh-oh, off to work.